I'd like to start off today by asking you all a question. When is the last time you, or somebody you know, has said anything hurtful to anybody else based off of your differences? Now, that's a loaded question, I realize, so I'll make it easier for you. I'm going to go ahead and do you all a favor and expand your vocabulary a little bit. The word xenophobia is a fancy-sounding four-syllable word that has a really simple, impactful definition. Xenophobia is the fear of people not like you. In fact, and I will admit, I'm a bit of a nerd for knowing this, xenophobia was Dictionary.com's word of the year in 2016. So clearly this fear is an extremely common one in today's society, particularly in the United States. So I'll ask the question one more time. When is the last time you, or somebody you know, has said anything xenophobic? I'd be willing to bet it's pretty recent. So what gives? Why are we letting this problem leach out into our society? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First and foremost, governments and corporations benefit off of our natural xenophobia by forcing minorities and immigrants into careers and economic classes that are nearly exclusive to that type of person. Politicians can use our natural discriminatory behavior to boost popularity and rally support. The consideration of Arizona Senate Bill 1070 is a perfect example of this. Arizona Senate Bill 1070 is a bill that requires police officers to determine the immigration status of someone when there is reasonable suspicion that they're in the United States legally. That's a bit of a mouthful, so I'll break it down for you. Arizona Senate Bill 1070 is a bill that requires police officers to discriminate against minority populations based solely off of their appearance. But there is a more direct reason to our natural xenophobia. It's in the phrase. It's part of our human nature. Unfortunately, part of what makes us human is being xenophobic. And there are real harms to our insolence. We can look at South Africa for an example of this. As I'm sure some of you know, South Africa has a bit of a dark past when it comes to xenophobia. Unfortunately, even with the ending of apartheid in 1990, things haven't gotten perfect. This is especially evident when looking at the South African immigration surge of 2001. A report released in 2001 depicts beatings of detainees by guards, assaults by police officers, and disorderly conduct towards refugees by Department of Home Affairs officials. Guys, we are subjecting our South African brothers and sisters to awful and unlawful abuse in order to feed a destructive habit that has previously split nations in two and inspired mass genocide. So how do we stop this? How do we make a difference? Those are the questions I asked myself when preparing for this talk. Unfortunately for us, there is no global code of ethics or law that prevents xenophobia from popping into our brains. All that exists are small groups, like this, that hope to inspire change. Thus, the solution doesn't lie in mass change, but in individual change. My goal today is to get you to change the way you see the world. Don't see the world through a lens, or through the lens that society has given you. Instead, see it through a lens of decency. Don't stagnate in complacency with the way that the world has decided to give power to some groups and let others fall behind. But before I go any further, I'd like to ground all of these big ideas with a story. When I was 10, I went off to a friend's ranch to stay for a couple of weeks. While I was there, I heard an adult use a derogatory term to describe the Indian reservation near the property. Not knowing any better, when I returned to school the next week, I used the term to describe one of my friends, not knowing the true nature of the word. I was quickly informed of how hurtful I was being when my friend let me know what the word meant. I think this is the first time I ever realized how powerful words can be. See, words have the power to inflict psychic wounds, and if we're not careful with them, then we may as well be waving a sword around in the air, taunting people to come forward and take a hit. I would argue that words are the basis for xenophobia, as well as the means for it to spread. If I say something hurtful, not only am I impacting the group of people that I'm targeting, but I'm also spreading the plague of hate around me to those unaware of their true verbal impact. It's because of this phenomenon that simply rejecting xenophobia isn't enough. Even if I succeed in my mission and convince you that xenophobia is bad and try to lead you away from your natural discriminatory ways, I can't ever hope to create change until I create an atmosphere of counterspeech. So what is counterspeech? See, our words spread and have impact just like hateful ones. If I can convince you, first, to move away from your xenophobia, but second, and more importantly, to stand up for the victims of hate, then and only then can I effectively combat the disease that is xenophobia. Now, words are not the only way to effect change when it comes to this topic. Education is equally as important in the quest to stop racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, homophobia, Islamophobia, and the like. The list goes on and on. If we start teaching more in depth the atrocities and contributions made against and by minorities in our country, then we can begin to have a deeper understanding of the effects of our hateful status quo, and we can begin to inspire change at a personal level. It's an old saying that demonstrates my point far better than I can ever hope to write. Those who fail to learn history are doomed to repeat it. This saying, as cliche as it may be, has real impacts. In fact, it's happening right now. A study conducted in 1994 shows that uneducated populations are significantly more likely to commit atrocities against minorities in their nation. This chart shows something just as revealing. This chart shows that uneducated populations are more likely to respond favorably to the Taliban. The history and atrocities we are teaching in our nation right now are already making a difference. So why not go further? We live in a society full of hate, subtle or not. Through both educating our population on the effects of xenophobia, as well as using our words to stand up for others, we may finally make a difference. But before I leave you, I'd like to give you all a word of warning. This change that I hope to inspire will not come without fierce opposition. In our quest to stop xenophobia, we will undoubtedly face people who defend their ideals and tell you that it's not your way to tell them how to think. You must never fall victim to this type of thinking. Remember, xenophobia causes tangible injury and hurts those who you target. Thievery or murder are never considered appropriate because they hurt the group of people that they target. The same logic applies to xenophobia. You will also face people who don't believe that their words can truly hurt others. Once again, never fall victim to this type of thinking. Even if somebody never expresses their words targeted at somebody, remember they're still spreading the plague of hate to those around them. I will not stand idly by and watch my American brothers and sisters fall victim to hate, and I challenge you to do the same. Stand up for people and use your words to inspire change, as well as educate your peers on the effects, historically and present, of our xenophobia. With these actions, we can truly inspire change and make the world a better place. Thank you.